So in this session, what we are going to do is we are going to learn about BEI and CBI. Now, I'm sure it's intriguing. Hey, what is this BEI and what is the CBI? Okay. BEI is behavior event interview. The very name, behavioral event interview. CBI, competency based interviewing. Now, these two words are interchangeable and used, so there is not much of a differentiation between the process, but the purpose is little different. When we talk about the BEI, typically what we are doing, we are wanting to, as the very word suggests, wanting to assess the behaviors of a person. So, when we want to assess the behaviors of a person, say, for example, is this person trustworthy? Or is this person what high on integrity? So, typically, we want to understand how can he be a very good culture fit. Now, when we want to know all these things, as an organization, I'm a high performance organization. That means I want my people to stretch. I want my people to perform better. I want my people to all the time, be high on performance. Is this person a person who wants to stretch? How do I know? Or I'm an organization which is very much, customer oriented. So does he have that, customer orientation? Can he actually, resolve my customers' grievances immediately, or does he have that result orientation, because this is one of my core value. So that is how we are now going to actually look at a BEI. So just look at this. When we talk about the BEI, it is nothing but looking at the situations, because only when we look at situations, then the behavior comes out. So when we do a behavior interviewing, which is called BI, it is based on that fundamental principle which says past behavior predicts future behavior. Okay, this is the fundamental thing. And today, I'm sure most of you attend interviews. Nobody gets into a hypothetical situation unless and until it is a technical scenario or the situation demands it. Everybody wants to know, hey, what kind of work has he done in the past? What kind of situations, experiences has he gone through in the past? So they want to actually get into an insight into how did he actually behave? Actually, what is his behavior in the past? So that I can predict the future behavior. For example, traveling. He's a fresher. Do you think you can travel? Yes, I can travel. But how do you think Sneh should have asked that question, traveling, if she wanted to know? Anybody, just this job involves traveling. He's a fresher, right? So obviously he hasn't traveled as a part of the business. How do you think you can ask? Hey, as you are aware, this job is a campus recruitment. That means it involves a lot of traveling from campus to campus. Now, I would like to know, tell me a time you are a fresher. So, have you, find out, have you traveled? Ask him. Concrete, have you traveled? Where? What kind of travel have you done? Right? Or traveling is related to, he hasn't done any traveling. Adaptability. You also want to check how adaptable he is. Then again, bulk hiring. There is a key competence which is called planning and organizing. So how do you test for this? So you have to find out, hey, what kind of activities, what kind of co-curricular activities were you participating in your campus pressure? So, so check on, did you organize? Tell us the situation where you had to organize something. Because it will bring out planning, organizing. So you wanting to capture situations which will demonstrate some kind of a behavior, which in the context of the present will let you know that yes, because he has done this in the past, he will be able to, you are able to predict in the future. That is the fundamental premise, guys. Okay. So as I said, that you are focusing more on the behavioral part. Now, where will the behavioral part come? If you recall, I also explained to you last time, we look at critical incidents, not necessary that all of them are successful events or high. They could be low, they could be failures also. So you are looking at all the critical or significant events which in the past can actually help you to give a lot more information with regard to the behavior. Huh? Yeah, and you are able to assess and evaluate whether he can do the present job. Okay. So typically, how do you go about doing an interview, behavioral interview? You have to understand the job. For example, I gave her the job, campus recruiter. So that means you have to, first of all, have a good understanding of the JD, job description. Yes, Prashant? Right? Before you start, you have to know what is the job about. Without that, you can't do. Right? Then what do you need to do? Then you have to have what are those competencies required to do this job. I told you two things. What of the job? How of the job? Does anybody remember? What of the job? How of the job? What does that what give you? Amit?
Knowledge and skills.
No, no. So when I talk about what, it helps you to understand what that what is he responsible for, the role, responsibilities,
Yeah.
which involve knowledge and skill, right? Technique. The how part involves what?
The
The
behaviors.
behavioral competencies. Is it good enough to just to know, yes, Amit has to do this campus recruitment, he has to close 100 positions, 200 positions, or there is also this behavioral competencies which come into play, or planning and organizing, prioritization, etc. Huh? Those are also important, right? In order to ensure that, yes, when I take Amit, he is able to do that job. So, what of it and how of it are very important, and you should actually do those competences beforehand. Then you will start planning what kind of questions I need to ask for all those competencies. Here, I did not give its Sneh any time to prepare for her question bank. Okay, so therefore she had to ask questions, multiple questions. But there, you just can't say, "Oh, Amit, come in, how is the day, how is the weather," and then ask him. No. Because I hope all of you know, one bad recruitment is what? 5 times, 10 times the cost, right? Huh? If you what is it, recruit low quality people, your training costs will go up, or they will attrite, they will not retain, then the performance is also low. So it's very, very important that a lot of preparation goes in. Now, the heart of this interview is called what? How do you then do the behavioral part? So there is a technique called the STAR technique. We're going to talk about the STAR, and I'm sure all of you, even you, I'm sure most of you keep giving interviews. So please follow the STAR technique. Even as an interviewee, you can also do this. For some of you, it will be helpful. Okay. And then, of course, as an interviewer, don't start judging that person. Amit is good and Prashant is bad. And no, take down notes, everything, and then assess the person afterwards. Not immediately at that moment. Okay? This is what it is typically. So when we do this, the heart of it, what I talked about, is what? Past behavior predicts future behavior. Okay? Now, having said this, now we are using, I told you we are using, I'm sure some of you are very familiar with the STAR technique. Anybody who's familiar with the STAR technique? No? Okay. If not. So, yeah. So, how do you do it? You are wanting to know whether he is very good at planning and organizing. So if I ask Amit, this job involves a lot of volume hiring. So how good are you at planning and organizing? My prompt response, I'm sure Amit will say, yes, very good. But does that tell you that he's really a good planner and organizer? No. So I need to then ask him, hey, tell me the situation in the past. May not be as a fresher. Maybe how did if you had organized some event in your college, etc. How did you go about planning? Then Amit will tell it like a story. How he will tell you the situation first. Why did he actually organize the event, etc. Then what was he supposed to do? What was the task? T is for the task he's going to. Then I need to write everything in detail when he talks about the action. What is that he did? Okay. And when you're talking about action, a lot of it will come out. The how part will come out. Then what happened? What is the result? So this is called the situation, task, action, and result. Okay, the STAR technique. Like for example, there's a customer, a situation. Tell me about a time when you had to handle a dissatisfied customer. He'll give you the kind of a situation. Then the task could be what was the specific issue or the problem you needed to address with the customer. If there was a problem with the customer. Then action. So you need to describe what was the action taken, what did you do, etc. And then what happened. So this is called the STAR technique. And this is it's not a new method. In fact, if some of you have really done a lot of reading in psychology and HR, you'll find that there is this person called Flagnanan. Before the competency method had come in, Flagnanan talked about what we call it as CIT, critical incident technique. Okay, when you do performance management and when you're evaluating, you're talking about critical incidents. It's called a CIT technique. Now, the focus of CIT was more on the what part. When the behavioral event interviewing by the McClellan came up, then he focused on the behaviors of that critical incident. Okay. So, if you look at this process, review the incident, collect the facts, analyze the data, then look at the outcome, then evaluate the solution. This is how it is. So, when the interviewee is telling you this entire thing, you need to really document the entire thing and more in terms of the action verbs, more in terms of the action. Say, for example, you don't have sufficient information. Will you keep letting him go on? You need to check. You need to probe further and further. What we call it as a probing funnel. So, typically, if you want to keep probing, what kind of questions will you ask? Why did you do that? What did you do that? How did you go about? Because you don't have sufficient information, then how would you be able to evaluate or assess? So you need to pause, you need to check at that point of time. Hey, please, I want some more information. Can you clarify that? So that's how we will learn the probing technique as well. So how do you do probing? Can you tell me what was your exact role? Or can you take me through what happened? Or how do you convince him how did you convince him? What is that you did to him? Or can you tell me how you felt what that happened? Can you see if you look at this pattern of all these questions, what is happening? You are actually getting more and more information from him. So how do they look? Do they look like questions which are a little open-ended? Or are they looking as yes and no questions? Or are they leading questions? In which category will you put them? Anybody? Hey guys, Prashant, you want to?
Yeah, these are open questions because they are kind of
They are
open-ended,
little
like the
open.
person is free to respond in any manner. It's not closed yes or no, but
Huh.
they're not leading either. They're not leading
They're
the
not
person to say.
leading, saying that yes, I do this. So you want more open-ended. Now, I'm not telling you that you cannot use a closed question or a leading.
Yeah,
But initially, you need to get more information. And then, if you want to be convinced or if you want to say, hey, is this what you're trying to say? Then, with this, You paraphrase and say, hey, is this wanting to actually check with him? Okay. But you don't start with a closed question, or you don't start with a leading question, because leading question or a closed question right in the beginning is not going to give you information. Like, for example, Sneh said, tell me something about yourself, or take me through your CV.
Open-ended.
It's a good icebreaker, and also helping him to, she wants to know more about him. It's an open-ended. He could tell anything. He told about his family background, or he could also talk. Tell Amit could have actually talked more about, the kind of technologies, the kind of, he could have talked more professionally in terms of what kind of programs he has gone through, what certifications he has, because he's a fresher. So he must, so you, so, when you give him an open ended, you also get a flavor of, hey, what kind of a person, where is he coming from? But at that point of time, you are not taking any judgments or concluding. You are only taking as much notes as possible. All right.
I mean, one tip,
I'm
ma'am.
adding to means your means that questioners means it's more about the objective questions means where we are getting means what he exactly done, okay, in his previous experience. So means we will get the idea means ki, about his behavior, okay, means for the target achievement, or means for any situation we are asking means give me example of any situation. So we get the idea means how the person means candidate is tackle with that situation, or how he is solving that problem. So it's more about the objective. So that's what.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify here, Madhuri. Yes, you're there, but the focus is not so much as to the achievement. Achievement does not give you an insight of how did he go about. Say, for example, we'll come back to the same position. A campus recruiter, 100 positions. So he may say, hey, I've actually closed so many positions for this, or for this business, but doesn't give me an insight into how did he go about. So when a candidate talks only about what he did, then you start saying, hey, how did you go about? What were some of the things which you did? Then what were some of the obstacles you had? So the how part is also very, very important. And sometimes people start using we. So then you can stop and say, okay, but what is that you did? So we'll come to that pitfalls. What is that you did? So, like, for example, to find out what exactly he did and not we, because sometimes most of the people talk about, oh, we did this and the team did this. No, but you also want to know what exactly the person did. So when the probing is a very, very key technique for BEI. And how do you probe? So you need to be a very patient listener and an active listener, watching, observing all the what body language cues of how is he sometimes if you are faking, your body language gives out. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Person might say a lot of things, but if you watch him closely, the body, he is not able to keep maintain eye contact, or he will keep, flickering his eyes. So you need to closely watch, and that's the time then you can check for more probing questions, more data. Because this tendency of saying, hey, a person can fake and he can give any situation. But let me tell you my experience, that people cannot fake for a long time, because you keep asking follow-up questions, so it becomes very difficult, and you keep observing, you can make out whether he is faking or whether he's actually giving you the true situation. Yeah, I think Prashant wants to ask something.
Is it a fair? I mean, for me to make it simple, I just kept in my mind like what, where, when, who. Why is contentious. I may not ask why, and how. So 5 W's and 1 H. What, where, when, who, and H. How.
Yeah,
And
because
those are all
typically we
any
have
question
this
starting with that. Is it a probing question? Is what I believe. I mean, it's a probing question.
yeah. So you have this probing funnel. So what, why? But if you ask a why question,
It's contentious
what
because
happens? It's more of defense. Why did he do it? It's not going to give you any insight into why he did it, right? So I would say typically do not get into a why question
Yeah.
unless and until it is something where you needed to know a why.
Yeah,
It
because
is more
everybody will have
hypothetical.
different answers to why, or
Differences.
according to
Absolutely.
his experience, or it can be
Yeah.
debatable. And then
Yeah.
when is that point where I actually feel like, immediately the person says I did this, but this was the situation. Immediately, if I ask when, and that there is a delay in the response, you can understand that he is cooking up the story.
Absolutely. That's why I said body language is very important. But the how part comes into play a lot. So how
Yeah.
did you go about? What is that you did then? What happened? So you have to pause, and keep watching him and keep getting more out of it. Because the way he's narrating, then if you don't get much data, you are not able to classify because you're looking at more action verbs, the pattern of those verbs. Because what you get is only when you get a pattern of verbs, you are able to code, right? Most of the time, what is he then, right? You can't have a stray case out of the fluke. Oh, I did. It's like playing a carom board. Oh, I did. So if you're going to select him just because of a fluke, he hit something, that may not be a very good hire then. Yeah. There is a survey by LinkedIn which with typically organizations they are interviewing, especially when they're doing a screening for these competencies like adaptability, culture fit, collaboration. Why do you think suddenly organizations are focusing so much on this adaptability, culture fit, collaboration? Anybody?
Uh, because
Core
that
values
becomes
important
the,
today.
differentiation factor
Culture
in
fit
today's
is becoming
competitive.
very, very important. Culture fit is becoming very, very important, right? Then adaptability, because the market, there's so much of dynamics,
Changes.
because technology is changing, information is growing so much. So if the person is not adaptable, then learning curves. Okay, collaboration. Why is collaboration again becoming very high? So most of the organizations are looking at a collaboration quotient as well. Why collaboration?
Virtual
Hmm?
teams, virtual and global teams, and
Absolutely. In
ability to
today's
build out
times, it
synergy.
is not just individual work. You need to collaborate. And most of the product development, project management, only when the team members are highly collaborate, you are able to achieve things. Look at this leadership. They're also looking at growth potential. Does this person have a potential to grow? Then what kind of a prioritization? Is he able to prioritize, delegate, etc.? These are some of the things which, okay, I know it's a quick, having said that, I want you all to write, I give you a minute or two. Please write some um, BEI questions for adaptability. If you were to test, if you were to assess or evaluate adaptability in a particular position, what kind of questions will you? Just then only I'll show you that. Yeah.
I mean, for adaptability, I'm assuming that the person has changed various jobs. So how did you adapt to the new company culture from a small company to a matrix organization? If the person has jumped, I would have asked few things.
1 second. Just tell me the question first.
Okay.
How?
What actions did you take after your manager was laid off?
What actions did you take after your manager
Boss was
was
was laid off. That is one specific question.
after your
Supposedly,
manager was laid off?
yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. But
And
all right. Okay. Adaptability. All
Can I
right.
go next?
Yes, Nate. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about a time you had to learn a new task at work.
Okay. Tell me about a time you had to learn a new task. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, ma'am, may I?
Hmm?
This is Parul. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes,
yes,
Parul. Tell me. Huh?
So the questions I've written is, have you ever faced any adverse situation or circumstances at workplace?
Mhm.
And how did you overcome that? what motivated you to stay put on and overcome the situation? Tell me your ways and methods.
Okay. Simple. I'll just show her. Typically, when you're checking a Parul, I was just mentioning that no multiple questions. Parul, have you seen your question? Have you ever faced, then what, then? No? There were multiple questions in it.
Okay.
There were multiple questions.
Yes, it
Why
was
no
pretty
multiple
open.
questions? Because for me as a candidate, I have to be very clear as because it is not asking him a tough question or making him confused. You want to get the best out of him. Okay. So ask him in a manner which he can understand. So keep it simple. I want to go to Snake first. Tell me about a time. Can you repeat that question, Snake? Snake? Yeah. Muted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about a time you had to learn a new task at work.
Yeah. So tell me about a time you had to learn a new task. But I would say, and tell me about a time when what were some of the challenges you had faced when you had to learn a new task, right? Challenge you
Oh,
faced because you're not talking about challenges. So you'll only just say, yes, this is what I learned, right? But you'll have to talk about, hey, what? Then, of course, you can probe what is that you did, how did you go about any challenge, etc. Keep on asking. That's what. Now, so there is behavior in it, right? There is behavior. Now, look at this question. What action after your manager was laid off? So I will say, what action? I can just give an outcome, right? What was what you were looking at, Prashant, when you put this
When
question?
it's
What
plural
action?
actions, like say, imagine the entire team. You are
Hmm,
an assistant manager, and the manager
hmm,
is laid off, or he is whatever reason is not there. So how do
mhm.
you manage that situation with the team, trying to create a situation where he would, or if he has said so, like this
See,
was
sometimes what happens because I'm not able to convey the right meaning, you can't get.
the right
You
answer.
had a different intent, right? But that was not conveyed to the candidate. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
Huh? So look at some of these simple questions. Tell me about a time when you were asked to do something you had never done before. So how did you react? What did you learn? Right? Simple, no?
Yeah,
Ma'am,
I think
Yeah.
yeah. Tell me about time when you had to adopt to a new
New technology
change in your work responsibilities.
or
uh,
a change in your work
yeah, say you
responsibilities.
were
Yes.
Yeah.
transferred.
So how did you go about? What happened? You want to know more. So you keep probing. Describe a situation in which, you had to learn. This is again a system or a process or a technology. So adaptability can be what? It could be a change of place. Adaptability could be a change of technology. Adaptability could be a location. Adaptability could be anything, right? So you want to know, depending on what question you want. So how has he been able to adapt? What kind? Because there is a kind of a shift. So was he able to adapt himself? Because you need to really be an open mind. So there are certain challenges. New technology, there are challenges. New boss, there are challenges. New place, there are challenges. So these are some of the things. Just to give you a little insight, okay? So now we are getting into. So it's always better to ask, tell me, recall, or describe. These are the starting words, okay? You should get used to when you're doing a BI. Say, for example, you are asking for a culture fit, okay? So, what are the three things that are most important to you? Tell me about a time you've been satisfied, energized, what kind of work? What is the most interesting thing about you that's not on your resume? What would you make you choose our company over others? You are getting an insight into why does he want to join the company? What kind of values does he have? So, some of the questions for culture fit. Okay, these are some of the questions for Collaboration. Let me see. Collaboration. Just write down one question for collaboration, guys. How will you assess collaboration? How will you assess Parul is a very good, collaborator? Just write one simple question. You can choose any situation. It's a collaboration.
Ma'am,
Could you describe a time you handled a disagreement in a team?
Could you describe a time? Yes.
You've handled a disagreement of your team member?
Okay. You can frame it better. Could, to start with, could is not a very good way of saying, right? Tell me about a
Okay.
time you had a disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah.
how
Pardon? Yeah, Madhuri. Yes.
how do you means how are you collaborating with your internal team to get the done task?
I'm collaborating very well. Are you
Example.
getting me?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
I'm just trying to tell you that's how we ask questions and that's how we get answers. Tell me about a time when you had a difficult challenge, to collaborate. You want to know behavior, no? So you are not getting behavior when you are asking this question. Okay, Madhuri? Yeah, let me move
Okay,
to Parul.
Yeah. Tell me about a situation where your team member could not finish a given task and a deadline had to be met. How did you manage the situation?
How did you manage the situation? Very good. Very good. There was a deadline. Your team members did not. How did you go about? Did you carry? Did you do it? Or did you try to motivate? It will come out. Right? Sometimes what happens if I'm the guy, these guys don't know anything. Let me just work 24/7 and finish the work. So, how part will help you? Hey, is he a leader? Or is he a guy who will actually do everything himself? Huh? Okay. One more. Prashant, you want to?
Rightly.
So just see this question. Give an example of when you had to work with someone who was difficult to get along with. How did you handle? I think somebody mentioned about it. Tell me about a time when you were communicating with someone and they did not understand you. What did you do? Or tell me about one of your favorite experience. These are just questions. Working with the team and your contribution. Or describe the best partner or supervisor with whom you have worked and what part of their managing style appealed to you. Or can you share an experience where a project dramatically shifted directions at the last minute? So what did you do? It happens, right? Sometimes, huh? So these are some of the things based on the job description you really want to check out. Yes. Similarly, for leadership, you can ask questions for growth potential, for prioritization. I'm going to send this, okay? Yeah. So, as an interviewer, when the person is giving you the incident and when the person is going to talk about, so how would you actually then go about? You need to use this called in the last session also we talked about ORCE. What is O? Observe the person very well when he is actually talking and doing everything. Then you must record everything. And classification comes only after you have finished recording all the candidates' interviews, and then you start classifying because then you will start looking at patterns of was there any pattern in his verbs, and then you are going to evaluate. Okay, so this is called ORS method of using the STAR technique. The STAR technique is the candidate is going to talk to you, and you have to do the ORS method. Now your star can be also, you need not follow only a star method. It can have a rat and, AARTS, etc. Don't have to really, get that only a star method. You can start from anywhere. You can start with the result and also, because ultimately you want to get the story out of him. We will do it together. I want you to tell me, we'll talk about every question. Is it a behavior question? Yes or no? Okay? Are you a team player? Is it a behavioral question?
No. It's not.
No.
No,
It's not a
no.
good because I'm a team player. It doesn't give you any insight into his behavior, right?
Yeah.
So it's no. Tell me
It's a
about a
leading
time.
question.
Huh? Yeah,
It's a leading question.
it's a leading question. Yes. Tell me about a time when you were in charge of a project. Describe your leadership style. Is it a behavior question?
Yes.
Yes, because he will tell you a situation, and then you will be able to find out from that situation the how part of it, and you will know what exactly he did. What interests or concerns do you have about the position or about working here? It's not a behavior question,
No.
right? No. Good. What was your greatest challenge in a particular leadership role you have had?
Yes.
Yes.
You could
No.
get a lot of insight in terms of what happened, how it happened, what did you like, right? So you'll get an insight into some of the behaviors. What idea have you developed and implemented that was particularly creative or innovative? Is it a behavior question or is it a no, yes or no?
Idea generation is a behavior, I believe.
Yeah, it's a behavior because implemented. So when you have an idea and the way you implement it, it could be you have a team and they were not buying your idea and you had to sell that idea, right? What characteristics do you think are important for this position?
No.
No, it's not.
Absolutely. Good. I think all of you have passed the test, huh? Let us see this interesting. I'm going to ask a person. Okay, the first question I'm going to ask. Where? Okay. I want you to convert this question, are you a team player, into a behaviorally based question.
Clear. Oh,
And if it is not shift, then anybody can button and please.
It's not.
No. You
no,
have to
have
convert
to
it
convert.
into a behavioral question.
So give me a
That is not
situation
How you manage the team? No.
when say two people were applying for leaves on the same day and both were critical resources, they were backup of each other. How did you
Shant.
break that conflict?
So I
Can
will
you
give a very
elaborate a situation you are a,
one second,
you
1 second. I'm going to be very hypothetical about it. So here again, do not give him a artificial hypothetical situation. Ask him if you want to be a team player, you have to find out in the past, did he play anywhere? Tell me an example where you had to be a team player. What kind of work was it? Tell me something about in the past. Did you work on a team? Did you do a project in a team? Then what were some of the challenges? Then tell me. But if you are going to give a situation, that will be your situation, not the person's situation. Are you with me, guys?
Yeah,
Yes.
got it. I
Huh?
mean, we
Don't
need
give
to
a
define the
situation.
bars. If there are bars defined already, then it will be easier for us to ask a question regarding
Yes, I'm
team
coming to
player.
that. I'm coming to that. Then when I'm going to come to that. Then I told you we are coming to that. When you are evaluating, you have to have your 4 bars where the way he has mentioned, then you will make your notes and say, was it 1, 2, 3 poor, average, or outstanding or good? The way he has responded. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, next, let me ask now, Sneh. How do you motivate people? Convert this into a behavioral
could
question.
could you describe a situation where you kind of
Absolutely. You had
motivated
to
the team?
motivate team. Yeah. How did you go about it? What motivates you to excel? Anybody else? I won't name. Yeah. Parul, you want to take a chance? Because I heard a lot of motivation in your questions.
Yeah, I'm just framing the question, was not prepared. If you allow me.
Take your time. Take your time.
Okay.
Then also the last question. Somebody also take time to just think about it.
Madam, what motivated you to excel that we can convert in a
Convert it into a behavioral question.
okay.
I want to know whether this person is highly achievement oriented. How will I straight away ask him or will I Ask him through, I want to know, a situation, through a situation, a behavior.
Okay. I would ask, tell me about a work situation where the
Absolutely,
target
Parul, you are
was,
right. Right. You had to excel. How did you go about? What was that work? You want to go more about it.
yeah. So I don't need
Because
to define
rather
any
saying,
situation.
see, rather than saying what motivates you, you should start getting into a tell. And then how did you go about? Then you're going through the funnel, you're going deeper and deeper and probing. But just straight away, why, what will not give you much information. Okay?
Madam, this question will give the example when your team perform best.
Tell me, Shiv.
This the behavioral question. Give the example.
Uh,
Team perform best.
uh. Give the example. Like, tell me a situation where you have a team where your team performed very well.
Okay.
Okay. What is that you did? How did you go about? Because here, when you are saying team performance, you want to know, did he delegate? Did he support him? Did he understand them? Or did he do all the work himself? Okay, these are very interesting now.
So one more question, ma'am. In this, when
Yes,
we are
Parul.
asking question which are
Hmm.
open-ended, like tell me a situation, can that be more focused on their work, the role they are applying for, or should we not
Abs-
ask work-related
Absolutely. We
questions?
are coming to that. We are coming to that CBI. Here, I'm
Okay.
just trying to acquaint you with situations because when you're just doing a BEI and you want to understand the culture fitness, the collaboration, you are asking situations and finding out. So, when we are going to, you ask me the right question. When we do a competency based interviewing, that interview will be specific to the competencies required for that position. You getting me, Parul? You are not asking
Yeah.
anything. You are going to ask, tell me a situation where you had to plan and organize certain work. So he is not going to tell you anything else but about that situation if he has done it. Because I am not now concerned about whether Parul has many competencies. Here I'm concerned about, I am now evaluating or assessing her for this role of a manager HR. Okay. Now, this manager HR, which is HRBP, has these 4 or 5 competencies, both in terms of technical and behavioral. Right. Now, I will only ask her based on these required competencies. Got it, Parul?
Yes, ma'am. Got
In
got
fact,
it.
you will do that preparation for those 4 competencies by writing your bars, etc., as to what is minimum required, what is maximum required, and on a rating scale, then where do I rate when I'm talking to him? Got it? Okay. Yeah. Now, this is just to get you more familiar. Now, which competency are we assessing here? Describe a time you worked with a team. Obviously, it is
Teamwork.
teamwork. Tell me about a time when you had to motivate a group of people to meet a deadline. Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Or
I would
Collaboration.
say
A
team
group of
management.
people to meet a deadline. So therefore, he said group
Motivation,
of
leadership
people. So it is collaboration,
Collaboration.
right? Then it is also what? Interpersonal.
skills.
How did he go about? What did he do, etc., etc. Right? And also maybe when he's telling, you can talk about communication as well. What kind of communication he did? What did he do? How did he do? So in one situation, there could be 1 or 2 competences which you are evaluating. Got it? Okay. So when we are typically asking, we are saying, hey, we have open-ended questions, don't have negative questions, be consistent with the questions which whatever you are asking for all the candidates. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a position, a project manager, okay, in a BPO. Now the functions, under general supervision of the program support department manager. He has to plan, organize, control projects, and handle all phases of systems design and project administration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are some of his responsibilities. That is, determine user requirements by understanding user business rules, analyze current systems for functionality, design and implement new application programs, control large projects, then coordinate, then assist in implementing new technologies, perform related and special duties. Okay, these are some of the things. Now, so tell me, which are the competencies which these questions are targeting? Tell me about a time when you had to handle a kind of a project you hadn't handled before.
Innovation,
Resourceful.
adaptability.
Problem solving.
I think
Yeah,
resourcefulness.
so you should say you had to handle something which you had not handled before. That means, if I have not handled something, somebody said resourcefulness, right? Huh? That's one. And then, of course,
Adaptability.
what? Obviously, you can also look at time management. Adaptability, yes, yeah. But considering the fact that there are 5 competencies here, so it is more of resourcefulness. Then maybe to some extent, if he's coming across certain challenges, maybe problem solving also. Tell me about a time when you are under great uh, deal of pressure to deliver on time. Here, which is the topmost competency, do you think?
Time management.
Management.
Exactly. Time management and also decision making, right? When you have to choose between product delivery and quality.
Decision making.
Huh?
Decision making.
Decision making. Describe an unpopular decision you had to make.
Is decision making.
Yeah. Describe the most effective team that you were a part or led. Obviously, teamwork, right?
Teamwork.
Teamwork. Okay. All right, guys. So we will do a small role play. What's the time? 12:15, right?
3:45.
Okay. So maybe you can take a 10-minute break and come back quickly. And I will actually, then we will do a small role play quickly as to how we can perfect this BEI. Okay. So before we actually do a breakout activity, let us understand a little more about this technique and also the application of especially the competency-based interview. So when we talked about competency mapping, competencies, we talked about also the application of these competency models in the entire HR function in terms of recruitment, performance management, succession planning, career, even compensation. And I'm sure most of you are familiar today how competencies form the nucleus of the entire HR function to raise the bar. So today, essentially, we are going to do this selection and how do we do a competency based interviewing skills. So when we talk about competency based interviewing, we are using this method or technique called BEI. You can actually see here that when we use this competency based behavioral interviewing, it improves the predictability. That means it has a validity and a high reliability because it focuses on the desired competencies and we will assess only those desired competencies. It also raises objectivity and fairness. It's very, very relevant to the job. How is it relevant to the job? Because we are focusing mostly on those competencies which are critical and also for the success of that role. And when you have those competencies, it also gives you a demonstrated performance. That means you can predict that he will be able to perform when he's on the job. Now, having said that, what is at the heart of competency based interviewing? at the heart of competency based interviewing are those competencies which are required for the job. So I've been repeating this very often. So if I have to know what are those competencies, ultimately I need to know what are the behaviors. So therefore, bars or the behaviorally anchored rating scales become very, very important because behavior. So that is what is important when you are doing a competency based behavioral interviewing, because you are going to talk about situations, you are going to talk about examples where he has actually in the past, how did he go about, what did he do. So that will give us an insight of behavior. How do you identify behavior? Anything which can be observed, which can be measured, right? If it is not observed and measured, it is not a behavior, right? So, what will you do? Some of the typical pitfalls for a behavioral event interviewing is, what are they? When a person keeps talking about we rather than I, when there is not much of a data, and also when you find that he is mostly talking about what he has done rather than how did he go about. Okay. Say, for example, if I'm going to ask you a question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Do you think that's a good question to get more insight into a person's behavior?
Yes.
What are
Yes,
your strengths and behavior? Huh?
yes,
No.
A very popular question, huh? 10 or 15 years ago, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I would beautifully talk about, because you have career coaches. So
Yeah.
I'll talk about my strengths. I'll also talk about weaknesses and say, hey, how you can convert that weakness also into a strength. It is so hypothetical, does not tell anything about how that person is going to perform on the job. Let me be very clear. Today, no interviewer is going to ask you unless and until he's one of those who has not been trained in the interviewing skills. Let me tell you. You should know what are your strengths and weaknesses, but it is definitely a question which does not really give you much of. You can typically as a rapport building or a open ended just for an introduction, but it doesn't give you any insight. There's another very popular question: why should we hire you? If you were a recruiter or if you were an interviewer, you will mostly ask the question: why should we hire you? Is it a good question?
No.
These are very
There's a
cliched questions.
somebody said no.
No,
That didn't come as very convincing. Tell me, Sneh has been doing the rounds. Is it a good question? Why
no.
should we hire you?
No,
I
no.
can do anything, no? I can talk
I
anything.
can say
But from
anything. I can say anything. Yeah.
you have the scope, but from the interviewer's point of view, can I really know the true Sneh? No. But my intent is to know what is she, not what she says. So this is a big pitfall.
I mean, we can rephrase this question by saying
Huh.
that what value do you think you will add if I take you
Hmm.
in this role, or if you are
Hmm.
selected for this role?
I
And
can say, I will say, I will try to align my HR strategy with the business strategy. I will scale it up for you. I will do this. Huh? Yes.
yeah,
If
again,
I want to
open-ended.
check your technical expertise, definitely talk about succession planning or career planning, or how will you align? How will you build a strategy? There are some things. But when it comes to behavior, you can't be very high. There's another question if I want to ask you. Hey, we need a team player. Like, for example, say was asking that question. Are you a team player? Then what will I say? What will be my response? We need a team player. Are you a team player? What will be your response, Parul?
If I want a job, I'll say yes. but it'll be difficult to explain
Absolutely.
how.
Where is it? There's a beautiful book, Competence at Work. He did a lot of work and he said, obviously, when you ask lead questions, people will respond the way you want them to respond, but that's not going to tell them what they are really. It will not give an insight into what. So these are the questions you really need to be very careful about. Absolutely a no. Then there are a very interesting question. I think I'll just use that blackboard. Though there is, let me just go to the blackboard. Do interviewers get carried away with first impression?
Sadly, but yes, it does leave an impact.
So
Sometimes.
what does it mean? What does it mean? I need to know my perceptions, or do I have some what biases? Right? As an interviewer, if I want to be very fair and want to do justice to the interviewing, I need to know, do I have something called what? The unknown biases which are there in me. So typically what happens if I have a bias towards, or if a person has dressed very well, speaks very well, I get carried away. And that becomes the sole criteria for my selection, forgetting about the key competencies and all that stuff. It's also called halo effect, right? Halo effect. Great. The opposite of halo effect is horn effect. Something which has done and he's no good. But you don't have a solid reason for it, no data. It's just your bias. Okay? Horn effect. There is also something called Me Too effect. What is this?
I
Hey,
sympathize
Parul.
with the person. I
No, no.
really
Hey, Parul. Oh, you and I shared the same alma mater. How was it? It's been great, right? So he forgets about the key competencies required for the position. He just talks some blah blah and then say, okay, fine, this is a job you have to do and all. Means same, Me Too effect. There
But
is
ma'am,
something called
should I say, but it
yeah.
does impact.
Huh?
There are the Me Too effect
Huh.
has subconscious impact on the selection.
So that's why I'm talking about, you rightly said, unconscious. What does it mean? That I have some unconscious bias. I don't know about it. And, I tend to get what? Biased about that. Me Too effect. And it happens with people. Contrast effect. Just because it's not from my institute, just because I feel great about, let me tell you, a lot of people from Excel and all, hey, he's not from there. So I'm not going to select him. Let me tell you. He forgets about the criteria. Irrespective of whether you're from a premium institute or not, that does not matter as per competencies, right? Huh? But some people go by what? High academics, premium qualifications, premium institutes. So, do you have that? There is something called leniency effect. So what happens if you want to be very fair, if you want to really hire the best? So you should also look at, do you have any unconscious bias? To eliminate unconscious bias, you use a system, you use a technique, you do use the standardized method of evaluating, which is the competency based interview, because your focus is on a standard, which are the competencies, and vis-a-vis that standard, you're going to evaluate everybody. You're not going to evaluate and change the standards for every candidate. Are you with me, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Even in performance management, unless and until I have a criteria, I have those goal setting and everything very clear, I can, as a boss, get into these kind of biases and say he hasn't done work well. And that is why the huge conflict at the end of when you do the appraisal interview. No, but I thought this was it. No, but this was it. So there is always that, a little bit of a argument between the boss and the subordinate. Okay, guys. These are
what is,
some of the biases which you need to
what is
really keep
leniency
in mind.
effect?
Pardon?
What is leniency effect?
Yeah. What is leniency effect? Have you seen some bosses or interviewers who will say, okay, fine, chalega. He's an average guy, but we can take him. No?
Okay.
That happens only when you do not have your bars in place and you are just, so your evaluation is not up to the mark. So this interviewer does not hire quality people. Okay. Okay. So here is the activity I want you all to write down. So there are 5 competencies. Okay. Active listening. I want you to write down achievement drive, influencing, interpersonal skills, planning and organizing. Okay. Organizing. Here, the focus of the interview is not for testing knowledge, etc., because that is easy. But testing, evaluating behavior is a challenge. Now, these are 5 behavioral competencies required for an HR manager. Now, I don't want you to write a long list. So, this is your interview guide template. You will be broken into 2 groups. I want you to write the competency and just write 2 questions. Okay? Just write 2 questions. And how will you probe? Just 1 or 2 prompts. Then, for those 2 questions, just write what? Only for 1 bars. So that then when you do the interview, then you can just pick out of this rating scale. I want you to take a snapshot of this as well, so that you don't waste this one and this one. Okay. Will be 4. These are 4 competencies for an HR manager. Please just write 2 behavioral questions. How are you going to evaluate or assess for these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? You can take the help of your previous notes, which is what is that, Qualcomm. I also sent you 2 Word documents. Have you seen those 2 Word documents? You can use that as well. So please write behavioral questions. How will you evaluate or assess this competency? Got it? Okay. Any clarifications required for this? Phase 1, just do phase 1 first. Don't get into phase 2 now. So was it easy to frame questions?
No.
We think that normally interviewing is the easiest act and we can ask questions, right? Okay. So who is going to present your work?
Okay, so we've identified 2 questions for each of the competencies, starting with
Okay.
active listening. Describe a situation when your colleague was feeling down emotionally and needed your support. How did you help him?
Yeah. So does the other group also get convinced that this is a behavioral question? Okay. Yeah, I wanted the other group to comment. Describe a situation. So obviously that there will be behavior coming out. Yeah, good to go.
Yeah.
The second question is, tell me about a situation when your team member approached you with a problem and you helped him to identify the root cause.
You gave him a little leading about how you helped him to identify the root cause. In fact, you can leave it a little open here, saying that tell me about a time when your team member approached you with a problem and how did you go about helping him, and then start probing, and then what was, how did you go about identifying the root cause? If it doesn't come out,
Okay,
so you can keep probing. Okay.
okay.
But
I think
here,
root cause
right?
was more
Yeah.
for the listening skills that, because you need to really listen to ensure that, the root cause he's able to dig in.
Yeah. So probe and get that out. No?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
The second is
So
interpersonal
this,
skills. What are
just
the
a second,
3?
Sneh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is
This
it?
question, Prashant here.
Hmm.
We were about to write like this only, but then it seems like more of a problem solving competency rather than active listening. So that's why we added the extra line to identify the root cause. So
Okay, but
that became a leading
even
question.
when you're doing problem solving, if you are not doing active listening, you will miss out, no?
Yes, yes. So just wanted
You
to be
will
on the
need
same page.
active
We had this
listening for that
discussion
also.
actually in the group.
Huh?
So we had this kind of discussion in the group.
Yeah, so
Problem
not
solving
necessary
requires
that
active
when you're
listening.
doing this, there could be other competencies also which will come up. Yeah,
Yeah.
good,
Sorry, Sneh,
good
please go ahead.
discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. The second is interpersonal skills. What are the three most important factors that make you an effective and valued coworker at your current job? Current job.
1 second, 1 second. What are the three most important factors that make you an effective and valued co-worker at your current job? I want the other group to comment on it.
To me,
Right.
this looks like more. Can I, ma'am?
Yes, that's what I'm.
Okay. This looked more as a question towards assessing the uh, teamwork or collaboration.
No, not
And
only question. What are the three most important factors?
yeah, it is
Here,
a leading.
that person is going to talk about label three factors,
Yeah.
but he is not going to talk about a situation where a behavior has to come out. Sneha, are you
Ma'am,
with
this
me?
was
Oh,
taken from the Word document.
Word document, okay. But yeah, so a little more on that, then you will need to actually probe further then for the behavior
Okay.
to come out. Huh? So there will be a
Okay.
follow-up questions on that, okay? Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
All right. Okay.
Second is when you have entered a new workplace in the past, describe how you have gone about meeting and developing relationships.
Okay. Good
and that,
question.
no.
Third is
Yeah.
achievement drive. How did you define the goals on SMART criteria in your last project for your team members? Could
Okay.
you
And you could
describe that?
probe more also.
Okay.
Here,
Okay.
then keep the funnel of probing further and further to get more information. Yeah.
Okay. Describe a situation where you had to adhere to stringent timelines.
Again, probing required, right? What did you do? How did you go about those things?
Okay.
Stringent timelines. Okay. Yeah.
Influencing skills. Describe a situation where you had critical team members resigning and you had to retain them.
See, it's a nice open-ended question. What I'm trying to explain is that it doesn't stop here because these are all questions which start and then you have to keep probing further and further to get more insight into it, more behavior, right? Okay.
Understood. Describe what actions you had to take when you had to get extra budget or time for completing a project.
Good question. Okay.
Fifth is planning and organizing. What steps do you take to ensure effective organization and planning? Provide specific examples.
Yeah. Provide an example. So obviously.
How do you organize your work to ensure that you're the most effective and productive?
So again, more digging
More,
deeper,
yeah.
probing to get good. Yeah.
Now the bars. So we have chose planning and organizing and influencing skills. So for planning and organizing, basic would be planning and organizing within the team. Advanced could be across functions. An expert could be someone who could do the same across the organization within and including external stakeholders.
Okay.
Influencing skills would be ability to influence team members. Advanced could be ability to influence other internal functions within the organization. And expert could be ability to influence external and internal senior stakeholders.
Okay. Good work. Overall, very good work. Now, after I listen to the other group, now I'll tell you what you will be required to do is you will have to ask on planning and organizing and influence skills. You have to interview the other group. Okay. How will you actually then interview for these two competencies? And likewise, that group will also interview this group on those two competencies they have written bars. Yeah. Good work, guys. I think in a very short span, you were able to formulate and come up with something really good. Yeah. Good teamwork as well. The next group, I think it is Parla.
Means competency behavioral. interview questions. Okay, so first, active listening and influencing. So first question is, describe a situation when your listening skills helped you overcome a communication problem to resolve the employee grievance or gave you an opportunity to exceed expectations.
1 second, 1 second. So till here, describe a situation when your listeners help you to overcome to resolve employee grievance. Very good. Now, what is this? Gave you an opportunity, that is also understood, to exceed expectations. What is that?
In this, ma'am, it meant that just giving them a amicable solution to a grievant employee, the employee went ecstatic about the solution. So
But
give them,
Parul,
yeah,
just think about it. You read now and see whether you have, to resolve the employee grievance or gave you an opportunity to exceed expectations. That is not understood very well, right?
okay.
You think
Yeah,
about it. If I'm asking you, till here you will be able to respond, but after that to exceed expectations, it has to come from him, right? You are already giving him a bar saying that, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, see,
yeah,
exceed expectations. Let him give the
right. Yeah.
situation and you circle exceeding
Mm.
expectations. No,
Yeah, it could
you
have
don't want
gone,
to lead him into exceed
yes. I think it could have
expectations.
gone into a second probing question that did you,
Probing question
Mm,
so that you will circle based on the response whether he was moderate or whether he exceeded expectations.
got your
Very
point.
clear
Yeah.
for this group? Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Then second is, have you had to sell an idea to your co-workers, classmates, or group? How did you do it? Did they buy it?
How did you do it or how did you go about fine? Again, did they buy it, etc.? Now you have to keep probing and then what you wanting to know the outcome in the end, right?
Yes.
So it will be a probing question.
Okay.
Okay.
Then interpersonal skills competency. First question is, have you had to sell again, we have repeated this that second question from active listening, that is, have you had to sell an idea to your co-workers, classmates, or group? How did you do it? Did they buy it?
So you have asked the same
Ma'am,
question, and I know
yeah.
that depending on the situation, you can come out with some interpersonal skills as well. But here, when you are going to sell an idea, co-worker, etc., it's more influencing, it's more your selling skills as opposed to interpersonal skills. Where will they be highlighted? When there's a teamwork. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Coordination. Here it's an individual who is selling an idea. Think about it. What behaviors are going to come out of it? Selling skills, communication skills. Are you with me?
Yes.
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 When I'm going to sell you something, what will I? I'll be able to influence you, persuade you to buy. So it is an individual skill which is coming out here. But you are looking at interpersonal skills. That means there is a project or there is some work. How did you, with the help of the team, how did you go about? There your interpersonal skills will come. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then second question is, give an example of time when you had to work with someone who was difficult to get along with. Why was this person difficult? How did you handle him or her?
I'm okay with give an example of a time when you had to work with someone, uh, a difficult person to get along with. Now you are asking why was this person difficult? What do you want to know about it? I mean, whenever I ask a question, I should also know what am I going to get? Means what is that you want to assess or what input you want here? Why was that person difficult? You ask yourself, why was the person difficult? He will give you some answer because he was like this. But that is judgmental, that is conclusion. What are you going to do with that? It is not behavior. Please think about it. Huh? Why is Shiv Chaduri a difficult person? Oh, he's rigid, He doesn't want to listen at all. So I'm already giving some judgment or conclusion. So that is about an X person. But how is it going to help you in assessing this person whom you are interviewing? Think
But
about it.
ma'am, this will help us in identifying how the other person uh, evaluates a difficult
No.
person
So
and
it is
then manages him or
yeah,
her.
but no. Think about it. Why was this person difficult? Might not. It depends if you are going to probe again. Okay.
Yeah,
Again,
the
if you
point
say,
was that
okay, he will
yes,
give
we were probing.
something, but why do you think he's like that? It gives a, but they can be a little more, if and buts kind of a insight. But how do you handle him or her? That's okay. You are going to get what is that you did, what is that you do, or what is that you did. So how did you manage things? How did you handle? What did you do? More importantly, what did you do? Okay. Yeah, I will give you 70-80% of that question. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Then achievement drive, okay, and planning and organizing. First question is, give me an example of an important work related goal that was established for you and the steps you took to achieve that goal.
Good. That was set for you and steps you took to. So you will again keep probing. How did you go about? What is that you did and all that? Okay.
Then tell about a time when a group you lead failed or did not meet expectations. What happened? And then what did you do?
I think, yeah, I'll give it to you. Good question.
Okay. Then planning and organizing. Okay, describe a time when you had to handle multiple competing priorities. What did you do? Provide specifics.
Good.
And then describe a time when you faced a particularly demanding situation such as an emergency or deadline. How did you decide what to do first, second, and last?
Okay. Decision making, prioritizing, everything will come out. Done. Good work. Good. So you had to do 2 bars. Did you do that?
No, ma'am. Actually, we have not done.
No
Ma'am, you
problem.
said
Okay.
that
That we
bars will
will
do in
do
the second
later.
phase.
Yeah, so I asked
I
Vilma,
thought
I
so.
gave you a little more time, in fact. Okay, no problem. So I hope all of you are there. We will use those bars set by Sneha and group. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're coming back. We'll do a very short, just about a 5 to 7 minutes exercise here. Now, Prashant will be the candidate. Prashant is the candidate and Amit is the interviewer. Now, you first saw how Sneh managed to do an interview, right? Now you got some guidelines. You also have your competencies only for 2. Don't do for everything. Just do only for 2 competencies. Huh? And those questions which you have framed already, do only a behavioral interviewing and only for 2 competencies. The learning here is how will you actually keep probing? How will you elicit the data as well? Okay. And this is a position for a HR manager, and you are looking at 2 competencies. I'll leave it to you choice. Which one? What you want to do? Achievement drive, active listening, influencing. You have written all the questions. So interpersonal skills, planning and organizing. So pick up two competencies.
Prashant?
Yeah. So 2 questions, and we will look at just 2. All right. Now you have the
Want me to zoom in?
bars as well.
No,
Now I want you to just focus, no introduction as well. Okay, you can just do one introduction, but focus on the behavioral competencies of this planning and organizing, influencing skills. And we want to learn the probing technique. How will you ask for an example situation and how will you probe further?
Hi, Prashant. How are
Hi,
you?
hi, Amit. All good. How about you?
All good. So, Prashant, I could see that you have done a lot of projects in your current assignment in your current organization. Can you please take me through one of the assignments? How did you go about planning the entire project and how did you allocate the responsibilities to the team?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to take you through that. It was an HR project where we were implementing HR software uh, for HRMS as an HRMS, but we also had to, talk to the finance, recruitment, and payroll teams, because this software would also showcase your income tax receipts, your uh, other things. So it was not just limited to HR, it had to go through finance as well as payroll. How do you actually
So
access your
how did
payslips
you
and all?
how did you assess what kind of requirements you have in required in the HRMS software? How did you go about it?
Yeah, we had to do analysis about what are the different softwares that we are using. What is the head count that the HRMS would support, and the kind of load that it can bear at a certain point of time, and accessibility across the globe where we function across, Asia Pacific generally. So accessibility in Asia Pacific, maintenance support in Asia Pacific, and those kind of vendor support that we get. So these were the special criteria that we checked, with the compatibility with the current existing system, and accessibility and the load that it could bear in the Asia Pacific.
Okay, and so how many HRMS software have you evaluated, and how many did you how did you shortlist the HRMS software?
We compared the cost, as well as we did basically a Google search, but then we shortlisted on 3 companies, and they came and presented their cases to us. Uh, One of them looked more convincing because they had demonstrated the ability to, uh, sync up with Oracle systems, which we were using for our finance and payroll systems. So that compatibility was there already displayed. So we went on with that, though it was slightly costlier, but we had to go ahead with that. We finally divided the project into various milestones, and we ensured that the software provider doesn't run away until we go live. And after that, if there is a hypercare period, they have to support during that time. So we finally got them to actually give us 6 months after go live, where we could have various iterations and compatibility issues with various other softwares, people logging in and the system crashing down, those things. So first 3 months were very difficult. After that, the next 3 months they upgraded the app, and we are fine now.
Can I stop you here, Amit? Because we
Yeah.
don't have so much of time. I want to learn certain things. Okay. First of all, can others observers strikingly, what do you think it was a total no-no here? What was coming out very clearly, and which Amit should have actually uh, intervened and said something?
So
It
the
deviated
first,
from the main
One at a time, yeah?
competency. Sorry, the deviation from the current, from what he's trying to actually identify the competencies.
No, no. So we'll look at just planning and organizing. This was a competency where he was assessing for planning and organizing. Right, Amit?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
I was
because
trying,
we said
but
any 2 competencies. Now,
now,
Amit did not stop and tell Prashant. So repeatedly, we. He did not ask, okay, we. Who was a part of the team? How many were there? What was your role? Because if you have to again go back and analyze and see, you will actually see, if you have taken some notes, that there was no pattern of verbs what he had done. How will you get to know if he's not telling you? You have to then stop him and say, okay, fine, who was the team, what was your role, what did you do, what did you do in trying to get the support of people, or how did you go about getting the consents? There was nowhere I. So how will
yeah,
you judge him, or how will you evaluate him? Correct, Amit?
absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
See, he kept on saying, we challenges, then we shortlisted 3 and everything, what. But how did he go about? What did he do to convince people? Was there any role for him? Because he might sound big that we have managed to get the software, but you don't know exactly what was his role. What did he do? How will you then get that planning and organizing competency? Did you do anything first of all?
That is
Or
more
he was
focused
just a
on
coordinator? Pardon?
That is more focus on the operational part actually.
No, operation also you have to find out, right?
Mhm.
Well, how did you go about? Because even when he's doing certain operations, there are certain observable behaviors, but nowhere observable behaviors are coming out. So once he's gone away, Prashant, how will Amit take a call on him? He was very good. Was it a basic or a advanced or expert? Because I don't have notes on that. I don't. So it is your duty to stop him and find out more about it. Are you getting me, Amit? As an
Yes.
interviewer, when we collect
Yes.
information, because unless and until I have something which I can see, something which I can measure and specific, I'll not be able to make a comment on that. Right?
I think
Yes.
Okay.
Very valid.
Prashant was describing about process. Okay, instead of what means he did for that to get that work done, and
Right.
it was more about subjective instead of objective.
No, he was giving a situation. This was the situation, this is it, everything. Or even to some extent, some task. But what was his action? We maybe the team's action was there. But what did he do exactly? What was the role? That was not showcased.
I think
My
But
the
it's
own
follow-up
okay for
question.
Prashant. But it is
Yeah.
okay for Prashant. But I, as an interviewer, I need to take a call on that. I have to actually pause and ask more questions because otherwise I will not benefit. Maybe he's a very good candidate, and if I miss out the meet, then I'll be thinking, oh, he only must have coordinated something. I will assume something when I'm actually sitting and taking the call on evaluation. Okay, all right,
Yeah. Got
guys.
Thank you,
All
Meritt.
right. Okay, yeah. So thanks, guys. So I hope you have understood by and large how to go about asking behavioral questions and how to keep probing. Okay. So typically, when you're doing a CBI, so you write, you do a preparation first of all the competencies, of all the questions, of all the bars, and then you will capture when you're interviewing, then you will capture on your rating scale. Okay. Typically, some of the critical competencies when you are an individual contributor will be drive for results, customer focus, integrity and trust, dealing with ambiguity. These are some of the competencies which you will be assessed for. When you are a team manager or a level higher than the individual contributor role, or you actually have a team, then you are assessed for driving for results, intellectual horsepower, motivating others, develop and direct reports, analytical skills. These are some of the competencies which the critical competencies which you will be assessed for. Now, whenever you are doing an interview, the first and the foremost thing is what? You look at a resume, right? You need to look out what? For red flags. What is the meaning of a red flag? That means, are there any gaps in the CV with respect to experience? Or, does it look, is there a consistency in it? Or, you have to go through the entire thing. These are some of the checklists which you have to look for. And you can also look for whether he's an achievement oriented person, whether he's a setting tough goals, etc. So these are a list of things which you can also look for. I'll send this PPT. I'm just reducing. Now, there are certain legally defensive questions you are not supposed to ask, and I'm sure everybody knows about the sex, race, color, origin, religion. Today, even if, you're not supposed to ask even whether you're married, not married, etc. These are legally defensible questions. Then, when we are talking about open-ended questions, Prashant was mentioning about. So these are some of the words you can use: how, why, when, where, and then talk about what, who, which. When you're asking a close-ended question, then you really ask: can you, could you, will, would, shall, should. These are some of the starting words which you use for both open-ended questions and close-ended questions. Okay. So again, just to re-emphasize, absolutely a no to hypothetical questions. All right. Then leading questions, yes or no, conclusions when required sometimes. Follow-up questions you use whenever you have asked a behavioral question and then you want to keep probing further, etc., or you want some clarification, follow-up questions. So these are type of questions which you tend to ask during the CBI or a BEI interviews. No vague questions, no opinions. You don't want opinions because they are not behavior, right? No hypothetical or future oriented statements. What do you think you will become in the next 5 years? Or this was a very pet question and all. These are questions which, what would you like to do? These are some of those future oriented questions. In today's context, nobody is asking them. Will you agree? All these hypothetical opinions, judgments, we only are focusing more on the behavior part. Okay?
Something very interesting I noticed in these slides.
Yeah.
A red flag said stability and security.
Ah.
You've gone a little too far. Yeah,
Yeah.
here, just one slide back.
Ah.
Yeah. Seek stability and security. Is that
Yeah.
a red flag?
Seeks stability and security. Well, it depends, like for example, some people who are there for say 15 years and 20 years and without much of a content increase in the job, right? Not much of a progression. So you want to know about it, saying that, hey, you've been doing a similar job for so many years. Then you want to ask him more about it, right? If there is no
Yeah.
progression in the career. It happens
Okay.
many a times. You are there in the job for 6 years, 7 years, doing the job. You are not concluding or you are not making a judgment, but you want to know, hey, what was the reason doing the job for so many years?
Mhm.
There
I
is no
believe
career progression, no higher role as such, right?
right. Understood. And moreover, it is connected with the changing industry scenario. With startups coming in, you want people who would take risk and take fast, decisions and move forward on a faster pace, or who are scalable.
Yeah, that is one point. Definitely, you are looking out for people who are flexible, adaptable, who want to not just you're doing a job and okay, fine, I'll be doing this job for years to come. If I'm going to hire that kind of a person, then you're not really, is not a great performer, right? So, like for example, background verification. So there are certain jobs for which you want people who are not aspiring for higher goals, and because in background verification, I don't know if in most of the organization, IT or even ITS, we do have a huge amount of work in BGV, which is called background verification. And that can scale, but there won't be any change in the content. And if a person is aspiring for higher positions, then I can't have that person doing BGV. And I recall people who are doing BGV for a year or so, they would get bored and say, ma'am, we really are looking for a change. So it is both the ways. Is this person looking at too much of stability and security, or is this person agile and wanting a lot of change? I can look at it from both perspectives. Okay. Can a being silent, the golden pause, what we say, also can convey something. What I meant is when you're actually probing, then you're pausing and just giving for a minute, you're silent. That can also, like for the candidate, it gives you that, okay, fine, now what? So
Scares
when
the
you're
candidate.
probing, you can be very silent for a minute. You can keep encouraging. You can ask for clarification. You can ask for elaboration of certain point. Okay. But definitely you need to get more information, because there are certain times there are people who can keep talking and talking and talking. And if you don't stop, because if it is not giving you any insight into any behaviors, then You are letting him only talk, 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 and you are not getting anything out of it. I've noticed many a times interviewers, when I was sitting on the panel, I could see interviewers not even interpreting, just letting him talk, talk, and they will take you from one place to another, and it's not making any sense. Have you experienced such things ever? If anybody was there on the interview panel or so, huh? And you also, as a candidate, be to the point. So do not elaborate on things which are not really necessary. Yeah, I talked about this recency, relevance, and results. Okay. Now, when the candidate is talking about a situation, if he's talking about a situation which was 5 years, 6 years ago, it doesn't have much relevance. Any critical incident in the recent past. So that is something very important to mention about in your previous job or in the recent past, because that will have much more relevance than some incident which has happened about maybe 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years. Okay. So bear in mind that it has recency, relevancy, and the results part of it. And we talked about those halo effect horn. What is cloning? Anybody
Me
wants to
too.
elaborate?
Ma'am,
Huh?
which was me too.
Me too, because I am so and so, so I want to hire people who are just like me. Say, for example, if I'm cloning, what happens to an organization?
You lose
When I'm hiring
you lose
people
diversity.
who are me too's or cloning, what happens to the organization?
You lose diversity, you lose critical thinking, maybe lateral thinking,
So
innovation.
people will become smaller and smaller and smaller in
Gods.
performance and in skills. So every time you hire, you have to hire a better person. Not that, hey, I'm this, so I want to hire because of no security, or you feel threatened. Somebody who is much lesser than me. Huh?
Ultimately, you become an organization of dwarfs.
Yeah, dwarfs.
Dwarf.
Absolutely. When cloning happens, then there'll be only dwarfism, because in lot many organizations, especially in the public sector, why do you think creativity innovation doesn't really, grow much? Because every boss will try to get somebody who will only say an yes to him, rather than somebody who can actually, come out with new things. The tolerance for, new things, so that's not there. Yeah, very important for a interviewer when you're doing these behavioral kind of interviews, that verbal cues, non-verbal cues. That is why we have to be very observant. Body language, what kind of an eye contact, what kind of a movement, gestures, body postures. All these are very, very important. Okay. Yep.
Ma'am, a very silly question, but if we try and find out too many things in, or all the 10 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 in one candidate, we may not be able to find a candidate within the timeline.
But
And
this is a
HR will
very
be more
generic
stress.
Parul. I want to answer this question because this is a very important question you have asked. First, you have to be very, very clear. So, having said the process and what we do and how we do in this behavioral competency based interview, the most important thing for an interviewer is to do his what? Some preparation. If for an recruitment manager, there are 5 competencies, right? I need to first of all rate those competencies in terms of what are very, very critical and what are nice to have. That means essential and nice to have. Okay. Thereafter, when I do the bars, okay, some you really need them absolutely differentiated maximum, and some is okay. You can do with it. And when you're trying to create the evaluation format, you have to take the weighted average for everything and go systematically so that you will arrive at the right candidate, not just by some judgment. Got it? So, what are you doing? You have to do that. What? Create a matrix, create your parts, create according to the job what is really essential. For example, let me give you an example. Very simple so that you will understand. I'll give 2 examples. I'm wanting to hire a counselor. Okay. Now I have a scale where you are saying, okay, desirable is something like a graduation, but I don't mind even having a master's, etc. But when you're giving the marks, okay, fine, for masters, you might give a higher rating. But now, having said that, empathy, which is very, very critical, okay? Now, a person has scored empathy 5, whereas her education is only maybe a graduation, which is minimum. That's it. Now, there's another person who is PhD, but on empathy, when you have done a scoring, you found that it was just about an average. Whom will you then hire?
The one who is more competent and empathy and has empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah,
Because
of
for
course.
me, what is critical is empathy on the job, because that will give me a better performance as in compared to just a higher qualification. Are you with me? Payroll. Payroll. I have 2 guys, Amit and Prashant. You have interviewed them. Amit is what? An MBA with finance. Okay? From a good institute. And Prashant is from a tier 3. Done? So from at that point of view, you are giving marks, whatever, desirable, essential. Now, Prashant has, you took a skill test on the job, payroll, he can work on the software, spreadsheet with 0 defects. Whereas Amit, I'm so sorry, Amit, but you could see that he does not have eye for detail. And you could see in his work in the spreadsheet that there were certain kind of, errors and omissions. Now, for a payroll guy, eye for detail is very, very important, because there will be so many deductions, tax, this, that, falana, so many things. So, even if he is MBA finance, gyan hai, but on the job you need this, because he can't be trained in eye for detail so quickly. So, you would rather choose Prashant as in compared to Amit. Are you getting me? So what I'm trying to do is, again, after having interviewed everybody, then you need to look at all the scores and take a call. What kind of a combination fits the best for the job?
See,
So,
in my
ma'am,
own
is it
organization,
like a
when I got my
competencies are more important, or the qualifications are more important? Like, is there a threshold, or it depends case to case?
Yeah, you are, after the entire session, you have asked the interesting question. So are you saying that what is more important? Is the qualification important or the behaviors important? Is that your question, say?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, like what is the threshold, or it's like case to case. So obviously
No.
behaviors are important, but would they give an edge over the education also? Like,
No.
It does
So
carry
it's
some
like
weightage.
this, like this. When you're talking about a job specification, right? When you're talking about a job specification, there will be what competence, the a job specification is what? You're trying to say, I need this kind of a person. So you will write what is the kind of a knowledge required, skill required, everything. Okay. So when you're talking about qualification, there is something essential. That means I need this bachelor's degree or I need this master's degree, which is essential. Okay. So when you're doing a screening, when you're inviting all the CVs, you will go by that basic criteria of experience, whether you need a graduate or a master's. So once you qualify that criteria, then you're called for interview, right? Not before that, no? There is something called a screening, first step of screening of your resumes. Am I clear, Sneh?
yeah, understood.
Because if you are not a graduate, say for example, it all depends on the kind of job posting you have done. To make you understand very clearly, I need a graduate who can work in the night at a salary of 15,000. Then what will I get? What kind of a resumes? I'll get all graduate and above resumes. Huh? I will get people who are drawing more than, 15,000 or so, and who can work at night. But if I don't write, night working is essential, then what will happen? I will get so many resumes who are looking at day jobs. If I don't write 15,000, I'll get many people. But when I say I'm going to pay only 15,000, say, but then I won't work at 15,000. So the first and the foremost thing is to write your job posting very clearly. What is the criteria? Because today, what happens, based on your criteria, you will get the right kind of resumes. Because otherwise, what happens? Your funnel, the yield, what I call it as yield, number of CVs received and screening. So if you get only 5% of resumes who are fit for the job and 95% are useless, that means you have not done your job posting properly. If you want a commerce graduate, write BCom. Otherwise, you will receive hospitality, you will receive science, you will receive somebody, everything. So be very particular. So that's the screening part. So does that answer your question whether qualification
Yeah.
is important or behavior important? Once you fulfill your criteria, which is your essential criteria, the screening takes place. Then after that, you will be called for maybe a telephonic round. Again, I will do a filter. And what will I do at the telephonic round? Maybe those first one or two things which I want to filter. I don't want to interview so many people, right? So filters can be many. I can also filter at a knowledge level. For example, I'm a campus. I want to do recruitment in the campus. So I don't want to interview everybody. So typically, what is one filter which you use? I will say, hey, all candidates who got 60% above can send me the resumes. Okay, that's one filter. Then after that, what can I do? Then another filter. All these people who are 60% above will go through a knowledge test because I want people with a particular knowledge level. I will prepare a knowledge test and give. Then after that, maybe I'll also do a skill filter because I don't want to go and do so many people's interviews. Then out of that, then I will start looking at. So I have tested for
Understood.
knowledge. I've tested for skill. Now I will test for behaviors. Okay.
Behaviors.
Yeah. That
Sure.
is the key things which I want.
Yeah. Thanks.
Like, for example, after the screening, the second telephonic round we used to do for communication check. So we had a set bar and they had to, qualify that. So the rejection, like 80% rejection was done on the basis of communication. So that was a good, way of, getting the better candidates.
Just to add Vilma's point very interestingly, because say, for example, all engineers, they were able to do very well knowledge test. But for me, very important was communication skill because they have to interact with my foreign clients. So for me, ability to speak, ability to communicate properly is also very important and which is not easily trainable. So what will I do? I use it as a filter. I'll say, hey, let me filter out people. They may be very good in theory and knowledge, etc. But I have to actually get people who are good at communications, right? So that's how you start looking at filters. Okay. Yeah, I think I will help you all with any questions, guys. So that is how you do the competency based and BEI. That is trying to find out what is the job, what are the competencies required, and then start planning for those questions, preferably the behavioral questions, and start probing. It needs a lot of practice, and definitely with practice, you can become a very good interviewer. Okay. So with this, we really come to the end of the fourth session.